shed a tear. You turn me bad, you turn me good. Forget to hope and learn to fear. Tell me that it's good if we do something, believe in something. I don't think I should if it ain't nothing, if it ain't nothing good. My heart is free, my heart is free. No place where I would rather be. You find me here, you find me here. You dry my eyes and shed a tear. Tell me that it's good if we do something, believe in something. I don't think I should if it ain't nothing, if it ain't nothing good.
You're here, I'm here, because we care. Not just for today, but we care passionately for the future. We know that we only have the possibility of avoiding a looming climate catastrophe if people like us refuse to give up. The future of humanity is at stake. While you work to meet the challenge of climate change, I beg of you, don't forget nature. The destruction of nature accounts for more global emissions than all the cars and trucks in the world. We can put solar panels on every house, we can turn every car into an electric vehicle, but as long as Sumatra burns, we will have failed. So long as the Amazon's great forests are slashed and burned, so long as the protected lands of tribal people, indigenous people, are allowed to be encroached upon, so long as wetlands and bog peats are destroyed, our climate goals will remain out of reach. And we will be shit out of time. If we don't stop the destruction of our natural world, nothing else will matter. Why? Because protecting and restoring forests, mangroves, wetlands, these huge, dense carbon sinks, represent at least 30% of what needs to be done to avoid catastrophic warming. It is, at this time, the only feasible solution for absorbing carbon on a global scale. Simply put, if we don't protect nature, we can't protect ourselves. This is what we need to do. We need to include nature in every corporate, state, and national climate goal. Put in place the plans, the timetables to meet those goals. Invest in mangroves and tropical forests in the same way invest in renewable energy. Work to end the destruction of these ecosystems. Commit to the effort in the next decade to secure them for the future. Pursue research in reforestation like we pursue research in carbon capture and storage. Set a goal to cut costs and increase scale dramatically. Empower indigenous communities to use their knowledge, their history, their imaginations, our science to save their heritage and their lands, respect and ensure their rights. Stop, for God's sake, the denigration of science. Stop giving power to people who don't believe in science, or worse than that, pretend they don't believe in science for their own self-interest. They know who they are. We know who they are. We are all, rich or poor, powerful or powerless. We will all suffer the effects of climate change and ecosystem destruction, and we are facing what is quickly becoming the greatest moral crisis of our time, that those least responsible will bear the greatest costs. So never forget who you're fighting for. It's the fisherman in Colombia, the fisherman in Somalia, who wonders where their next catch is coming from and wonders why the government can't protect them from factory fishing from across the world. It's the mother in the Philippines who's worried that the next big storm is going to rip her infant out of her arms. People in California who are fleeing from unprecedented fires. People on the East Coast are facing the worst storms in recorded history. It's our own country, our own community, our own families. This is the core truth. If we are to survive on this planet, the only home any of us will ever know, for our climate, for our security, for our future, we need nature. Now, more than ever, nature doesn't need people. People need nature. Let's turn off our phones, let's roll up our sleeves, and let's kick this monster's ass.
I'm a mother of 2 students. I live in Buckinghamshire and I'm an interior designer.
I'm a student.
I'm a doctor.
I went into business for 17 years.
A self-employed window cleaner.
The daughter of a policeman. I run my own business.
I'm a mother
I'm a circus performer.
CEO of a healthcare company that provides scanning services to the NHS.
I come from originally from an engineering background.
I was an engineer and I worked in the oil and gas industry.
I think the most important thing is that I'm a mum of small children.
When we realize that we are living in a time of emergency, that we will see everything that we love collapse in front of our eyes in the very, very near future, you ask yourself, what can I do?
I'm terrified of the impacts of the breakdown of our climate on people's health, safety and well-being, and I don't see anyone else acting in a proportionate way to stop the harm that's coming.
I feel a huge sense of personal responsibility for the damage that I've done.
I've just got sick and tired of watching governments and people in power not doing anything about the climate and ecological emergencies.
Business as usual has exacted almost an irreversible damage on the planet.
We don't have any time to waste. You know, the science is absolutely clear. We have to listen to the science.
Everything is at stake, not just the human species. We're looking at the end of life.
So there's a 10% chance that we'll reach 7 degrees of warming. Life cannot survive with 7 degrees warming.
Every 24 hours, we're seeing around 200 species of plant, mammal, bird and insect going extinct, disappearing forever.
I think we're going to hit economic collapse, food shortages, refugee crisis and war, pretty much in that order.
And that's an incredibly hard thing to look at.
No one's coming to rescue us and we can't do it alone.
In 1992, I was 10 years old. The knowledge that we now have, that I now have, was already widespread and all the governments were aware of it and they signed a treaty to say that we must change our ways, and it didn't happen.
When you have these systemic structures that don't allow you to make change, the necessary change that you need to make, then sometimes you have to do things differently.
We have to face up to the fact that things have to fundamentally change, and we're not even beginning to sit down and have that conversation amongst ourselves yet. And that's what we need to do, and that's what XR is inviting us to do.
There is nothing like it, quite frankly, out there at the moment, and we need mass movement to make change happen.
I was absolutely blown away by the ethos of XR, non-violent disruptive action and direct action. I thought that was very powerful.
Considering we have no leader, no exact hierarchical structure, it's the most well-organized group that I've ever been a part of.
And it wasn't until I got involved with XR that I realised we can actually make a difference.
When I found XR, I found a place where I wasn't seen as, the crazy environmentalist, but I was actually seen as a person who understands the severity of the climate crisis on the rest of the world and the love that comes with it as well.
It is not a divisive issue. It is an issue that should unite everyone and everybody should be involved. And I think that's really what puts me wearing this badge.
We're trying to look after each other and look after ourselves, and we're trying to build the future that we want for tomorrow.
The hope is that we can just have a better society.
There's a quote from Robert Swan: "The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it." We actually have so many people that can do something and that can do something right now, but they're not doing it.
And I would just implore anybody who's got influence to just ask themselves what's important, what do they value the most, what do they stand to lose, and from that point use that grief of what's being lost to power them forward to speak more truthfully and to act as honourably as they feel able.
Most people are trying to do their bit, and I think it's awful that that isn't enough at this stage. We know that there's around 100 companies producing around 71% of the global carbon emissions.
We all understand that this is a crisis and it needs to be faced as though it is one.
That there's a real difference between intellectually understanding this crisis and emotionally understanding it.
Just look straight at the problem and look at it deeply and understand what it means for us as a race.
Stand with XR, be brave, say this is an emergency, tell the truth about it.
We have to do what's necessary, not what's politically expedient.
If we don't actually get thinking, get acting now, the scope for damage is going to be astronomical. And we must fight. That's all that we can do.
You know that there's a problem, and you know that you have an influence and you can change things within your own company, within your own family, within your own friends.
So if you are in a position of influence, whether it's in politics or business, you need to bring pressure to bear so that the government can do the things that it needs to do to bring about the changes that we need.
Don't be complicit in the destruction of the environment. We don't have to follow orders. We can make a difference. We can change things.
Look at the longer term, bigger picture and not the current economic climate and short-term profits.
It may seem daunting, it may seem scary, it may seem like a big ask, but it will take us to a more beautiful world.
It needs to be all of us collectively saying we want change and we want change now.
Listen to the scientists, look at the empirical evidence.
Take the small amount of time that is needed to really understand the seriousness of the situation. Think about what it's going to mean in your life, embrace what is needed, and then do it.
Join in and help us get the people in power to change things. Because without that, we're not going to save ourselves, and we haven't got a lot of time left.
So we really, really need each other.
This is their last chance, attempt to do something for the planet.
The invitation is to take a deep look at yourself and ask yourself, what am I here for? What good can I do in the short time that I'm around?
The ecological crisis can no longer be ignored.
This government has a fine record on climate change.
We are in open rebellion against our government, and we call upon every principled and peaceful citizen to rise with us. The government must tell the truth by declaring a climate and ecological emergency. The government must act now to halt biodiversity loss and reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025. The government must commission a National Citizens' Assembly, a group of citizens chosen by lot and reflective of the demographics of the UK, together with experts and stakeholders, to vote on recommendations on the climate and ecological emergency. We refuse to leave a dying planet to future generations by failing to act now.
Here I come, you can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly. Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide.
empire. Your thoughts are a blaze no man can touch, and like moths to them we turn. Your bones, they are steel, and your eyes, they do burn. But can see that smile that eclipses an indifferent sun and could spark this city into something almighty. If only we could see, not kindling, waiting for a flame, you and me. We are all made of fire.
Fortunately, Obama didn't stand up for us. He stood up for the bankers. So that's it. That's the only hub. We haven't even talked about climate change. I mean, that's why Standing Rock is so important. That's why blocking the railroad tracks in the Northwest who are bringing down the pyramid that's what we got to do. That's it. And I think they understand how hated they are. And that makes them weak. And that gets into the whole issue of violence. As the great, and then we're talking about revolution, by the way. I'm talking about the overthrow of the corporate state. And for the Homeland Security person who's here, that's overthrow, O-V-E-R. Because these people are going to kill us, and they're going to kill my children. And in the end, you know, these corporate forces have us. They have us by the throat, and they have my kids by the throat. And I don't know if we're going to win. I don't even know if we're going to survive as a species. But in the end, I don't fight fascism because I'll win. I fight fascists because they are fascists. And that moral, almost religious quality is one that we have to embrace, what Niebuhr calls sublime madness. That understanding that radical evil must be opposed, even if everything around us says that we will fail. And when we find that, and when we have the courage to stand up and defy it, we may not win in an ultimate sense, but we will be free. I mean, I teach in a prison. They imposed a rule in the prison that all my students had to walk past the guards down the corridors with their eyes down. And they refused. They walked down the corridors with their eyes up. It sounds little, but it's not. That's what we have to do. And we have to understand that not the Democratic Party, no system now, there are no institutions in this country left that are authentically democratic. There are no institutions that are going to protect us or protect our children or protect the ecosystem on which we depend for life. It's up to us. And at least let us find that courage so that whatever generation comes after us will say they were not passive and they were not complicit.